Imagine the softest sheets you've ever felt. Now imagine them getting even softer over time. I'm here to tell you about Boll & Branch and how you can discover this new level of softness with their iconic sheets. In a recent customer survey, 96% responded that Boll & Branch sheets get softer with every wash. They source the rarest 100% organic cotton for an incredible softness to start. Then they skip the toxins and harsh chemicals for a natural feel unlike anything else, and it all comes together with their signature weave. This special design feels buttery, breathable, and unlocks new levels of softness with every wash, and they stand behind their promise of softness. With their 30-night guarantee, you can wash, style, and sleep in their sheets for an entire month. If during the 30 nights, you don't love your sheets or feel them getting softer and softer, you can send them right back. No questions asked. So head to bollandbranch.com for 15% off your first order with code Odyssey. That's BOLL and branch.com. Exclusions apply. See site for details.
Welcome to the PowerCat Podcast, GoPowerCat.com's Kansas State Athletics Show. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Now, from the GPC studios, here's your host, GoPowerCat publisher, Tim Fitzgerald.
Welcome to the PowerCat Questions Podcast, brought to you by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, and Cole Midnight Carmody. No Ryan Gills Gilbert today. He had a work conflict. He is now working at a new Aggieville establishment called Goolsby's.
Spooky.
That's how the crowd used to yell it when his uncle, cousin, something weird, when long time ago played at K-State. So yeah, he's at work. We're happy that he's gainfully employed beyond working for me, because that doesn't reflect well on his future.
He's adulting. As I mentioned, we are sponsored by The Fridge, and make sure you get to Aggieville and check out our segment sponsors, Tanner's and the High Low, and we are also working on some stuff with Goolsby's, so you'll be hearing their name around a little bit. But we are going to plunge into your questions from Wabash Station. By the way, I just saw a Twitter ad from The Fridge. Pabst Blue Ribbon now has, what do they call it? It's like 8% seltzers. So, I mean, I'm not into seltzers. Cole's not into seltzers. But 8% seems like a better investment. If I got to have a seltzer and possibly get diabetes while drinking, and you know me, Zach, I like a fruity martini, but seltzers are just a little bit too much for me. I might as well have 8% alcohol in it.
Bang for your buck.
I'll just stick to the tried and true.
Which is?
Not truly.
Not truly.
White Claw.
The Claw leaves you drunk and in awe. Here we go. Your questions from Wabash Station. Midnight has it this week.
First question of the podcast is from Limestone Silo. What's your level of concern for Deuce Vaughn sustaining a severe sophomore slump? Will an offseason of studying tape allow defensive coordinators to neutralize him, or are his talents special enough to prevent a slump?
Yeah, they are. The fact that he was able to do what he did as a true freshman with limited offseason exposure due to the pandemic, come in and know the playbook, not have the full strength and conditioning program, his ability to overcome all this and do that basically as an 18-year-old or whatever he was, but was incredible. And on top of that, his problems as the season progressed were the simple fact that the offense didn't have anything else going for it, and it was easy to key on him. I don't think that'll be the case anymore. I think they're going to be much more balanced offensively. We'll see. Skylar Thompson staying healthy will certainly help. But also Deuce is bigger and stronger. I mean, they've already talked about the offseason program for these guys that were true freshmen. They didn't quite get all the preseason muscle they needed last year, and now they've just stacked it all on. It's going to be interesting to see how teams handle him, how K-State uses him, and is it possible to move him around on the field where you really can't key on him? You can't say this guy's going to take you away because now he's out at receiver. And I think we're going to see a lot of that, particularly with Joe Irvin returning. Mm-hmm. I feel like Joe gives him someone in the backfield then. They can split Deuce out into a receiver position, and you still got to deal with Joe. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how they use them, but it is going to be a serious game of chess. Those defense coordinators, Zach, are going to be moving the pieces around, and it'll be up to Courtney Messingham to figure this out.
Like you mentioned, I think it's about balance. If K-State can't find a balanced offense, if they can't fix their problems at wide receiver and Deuce Vaughn is it, so to speak, yeah, defenses are going to be able to key in on them. But if they can mix it up, if Mess can, adapt and put him in places that'll, that are different than what it was just last year. It was pretty easy to see, Deuce was it. Joe Irvin coming back. If the wide receivers can, improve, Deuce has a lot of options and places you could slot him to let this offense be successful. So I think he needs to become more versatile to avoid a slump. But if it's anything like what last year was, yeah, he's going to slump, and he's going to slump pretty hard.
I just don't see how this offense could get any worse than it was last year. They return every single person on the offensive line. They return a quarterback who's going to be back for his 6th year in the program, 3rd under this offensive coordinator. And on top of that, you mentioned if it's Deuce Vaughn is a special talent. And I'll tell you, I've seen, some of these guys just by, being out. And those freshmen, you can tell they have definitely put on muscle. I saw Will Howard. He didn't even look like the same kid. What does that mean? I don't know. But I do think that Deuce Vaughn, you hit on everything that I was going to say. It's just his ability to come in and adapt. That just says everything about the kid, about his mentality, and about his skill set.
And keep in mind, this isn't a matter of a player who's just incredibly athletically gifted. He's also a guy who grew up with a football coach, so he has this really nice understanding of the game that allows him to figure out what the defense is trying to do to him. Now, let's be blunt here. He was just overwhelmed last year as the season went on. He wasn't physically ready to handle what defenses were able to throw at him because they didn't have to worry about any real pass-catching threats, particularly when Briley Moore was hurt. There was not another real offensive ball-carrying threat that made you scared. So when he went off the field, it really took the pressure off. And honestly, they figured out Will Howard, too, and were able to kind of bottle him into positions that he was least productive in. Now, just having Skylar back solves a big part of that. Having another tight end that is getting great reviews solves part of that. And the receivers supposedly stepping up solves another part of that, along with what I mentioned with Joe Irvin. I'm excited to see Deuce as a sophomore. I think the sophomore slump is more psychological than physical. You think about it, you come into the game with a better understanding and better physical presence. Why would you be worse than your freshman year? There's some ignorance is bliss going on there as a freshman where you think you can compete and you go out and have some success, and then you think, oh, it's easy, and it's not easy as a sophomore. I don't see that happening with Deuce. I don't see this kid taking anything for granted.
Next question comes from Hard Ash, and he is a new subscriber. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for asking questions. We always love it when we have new people a part of the show.
In this case, thank you for asking questions.
Yeah.
You're now officially part of the podcast with a dorky comment from Fitz.
After all the ways Snyder won by zigging when everyone else was zagging, 5 wides with Chad May, the quarterback run game from Bishop onward, a running offense, and a pass-happy Big 12, where does the opportunity lie for Kleiman to do the same? Perhaps said another way, what wrinkles would you like to see Kleiman and the staff introduce that would set K-State apart schematically from the rest of the conference?
Well, I think in some ways they've done it. This commitment to pro-style NFL balance, using the tight end and running backs, and I really think that's the key here. I think throwing to tight ends and running backs is a huge opportunity at the college level because that is the weak spot of a defense. That having someone at the size of a strong safety or a nickel that can cover a tight end and a linebacker at the speed to cover a running back, those are mismatches. Those are guys you can't find. And I think the balance offense, if they can maintain their balance and diversity of play calling, can be an incredible asset. Now, I think it's interesting Kansas is going to essentially the same offense, so it'll be a little less unique. But, you talk about zigging and zagging. I really thought Kansas was going to end up with the option
triple
football.
Option.
I thought they were, but no, they're going to end up with a very similar offense. Yeah, the thing about it is now this generation coaches have seen it all. They've gone through the spread, and they've also seen the power running games. So I think defensive coordinators are currently in a cycle where they might be a little bit ahead of where they were a few years ago, and we're seeing the points slow down a little bit. So much of the game now is, do you have Trevor Lawrence? Do you have that guy at quarterback that's just better than everyone else? Well, that's true at every level. You see it with the Chiefs. But I think the Chiefs offer a great set of lessons for any coach is go get weapons. Maybe they're too short. Maybe they don't fit the mold. Tyreek Hill is way too short to be an NFL receiver, isn't he? Well, they found a way to really use him. And they've got a really athletic tight end that can make things happen. So if you can go find some diversity of weapons, I think it's really going to trouble teams.
Yeah, I think K-State is so different from the rest of the league that if you change anything, you're going to become more similar, picking up the tempo, doing other stuff, passing a lot, not holding the possession, which brings me to my point is, under Snyder, dominating the possession game was what won a lot of football games for them. And even though the offense is somewhat different, it's still a similar style that they're playing. And I felt last year especially, K-State didn't prioritize maintaining possession because when everybody's trying to score within 3 minutes, you need to maintain possession on offense if you want to, keep yourself in the ball game. And I think that K-State didn't focus on that as much and make it as much of a priority as they should have. So I think if they're going to do anything next year that might be a wrinkle that I'd love to see them improve on is that possession game. They should be holding the ball between 35 and 40 minutes a game. They shouldn't lose the possession battle in this league. I mean, there's no excuses for it. Oklahoma State shouldn't have the ball for 32 minutes or whatever. I don't know exact stats, and I'm just pulling stuff out of my head. But that's one thing that they need to be good at,
and it's something
in a league like
they've said they want to do. But you're right; they got away from it last year, and I think mostly because with the true freshman quarterback, they knew they couldn't sustain drives without mistakes happening. So let's get the points as soon as we can. And honestly, that's a formula. You turn the game into about weapons, and they were undergunned big time.
Well, I think they need to throw the ball to the tight ends, and right. I did a piece on the tight ends. Would have been almost a month and a half ago. I really think that you have 3 unique tight ends that all bring a different skill set to the team. And, they might not be the most talented, the most skilled, but there's no reason that they can't involve them more in the offense. I look at Nick Lenners, if he can ever come through. I mean, I've called him Baby Gronk since the day that I've seen him play. He just is huge.
He's got to get healthy, yeah.
And then you got a guy like Sammy Wheeler, who I think has the speed to outrun a lot of linebackers in this conference. I mean, to me, it starts with throwing the ball to your tight ends, and you have a unique set of running backs, too. We talked about Deuce Vaughn a little bit earlier, but Keon Mosey is somebody we haven't talked about. And I think he brings another unique skill set that they can line up at wide receiver. And I've always said, get the ball to your best players. At the end of the day, I think that's what needs to happen.
Yep, I agree. Totally.
Third question comes from Purple Cat 271. Welcome back to the podcast. It's been a little bit since we've taken your questions. He asks, looking at the record of all sports, can this school year be considered the worst in K-State athletics history? If so, why do people still consider the athletic program in good hands with Gene Taylor?
Well, I need more than 1 year, but it is a big concern. I just wrote about it. It's a big concern. I didn't go back and compare, all sports, but like I said, it's the first time football and basketball have had a losing season since 1990. It's kind of remarkable. It shows how difficult it is to be good in both because they've always been good in one. Before Bill Snyder, Lon Kruger had basketball going pretty good, and then Dane Altman picked it up and was okay, but had the dip in 1990. It's troubling, and we have to see much more improvement next year. And I've said this before. I mean, General Myers is going to retire. I mean, I'm shocked he hasn't. I think he wants to. The Board of Regents have asked him to stay on and stay on. Eventually, the university is going to have a new president. And when a new president comes in, new president wants new president's people. So it might be a good time to get things rolling.
Yeah, we'll get into that. But, yeah, like you said, you kind of need to see more time before we criticize Gene Taylor, I guess. One bad year of, across all sports is frustrating, but I don't think that means anything, at least right now, for the leadership of at least the athletic department. So, yeah, I mean, you'd have to go back a long time, like you said, 1990 since football and basketball, but throw in, what baseball's done this year has been kind of frustrating. So, it sucks.
At the end of the day, though, I don't think you can criticize Gene Taylor for everything that's gone on. I understand that you can be mad at him for, the situation that's going on with basketball and Bruce Weber. But if you were to look at just, I guess if you want to say the three major sports in football, basketball, and baseball, I don't think you can really freak out about baseball just because of where the program was. I don't think you can freak out about football because of the multitude of things we've talked about. But with basketball, I can understand your frustration, but I don't think it's fair to criticize Gene Taylor just yet. I really don't.
Yeah, it was just a weird year. Let's get beyond this year and see where it takes us.
Next question comes from the greatest user of all time, Mr. K-Ned.
Whoa, man, the young guy just gave K-Ned the ultimate compliment. Wow.
Maybe there was some sarcasm in there. I don't know.
No.
Wow.
I was taking shots at K-Ned. K-Ned, run for cover.
At how many other Power 5 schools does the AD not only have the coolest hot seat rating, but also get a raise for a combined 350 conference winning percentage? Are K-Staters too nice to be competitive?
I'm not going to criticize what anyone gets paid. I didn't understand the timing of the raise. It's
awkward.
It was awkward.
In the middle of the pandemic where everybody's taking pay cuts. I get contracts, but yeah, doesn't look good.
Isn't it just President Myers just taking care of his buddy?
Well, that's what it indicates to me, that President Myers is going to be stepping down soon, and he was making sure a guy who's been a loyal soldier to him is taken care of in his absence. That's what it seems like. That's kind of how these situations work now in academic circles, and certainly it appears to be that way this time. I did find it awkward and uncomfortable, and it would be kind of like me saying, hey, we're not making the same kind of money we've made in the past, but I gave myself a raise. Have fun, guys. Even if me as an owner of the company, I could do that, but it's not motivating to you guys at all. I could.
But do coaches look at what Gene Taylor's being paid and he gets a bump?
I'm not talking about coaches. I'm talking about the people.
Oh, I get what you mean.
Athletics.
Okay. I get what you mean.
Coaches don't care because they're getting paid more than Gene.
But he's not going to get fired. I mean, that's the thing. That's really what it comes down to, right? I mean, if people are talking about what's going to happen with Gene Taylor, he's not going to get fired. You just talked about it. The general is going to be out here soon. Why would he want to fire somebody who you mentioned has been loyal to him? I understand why people are frustrated, but I just don't think that's a realistic, scenario at this point.
I get this tone of these questions, and I get the tone of the board. I completely understand. Folks, this year has stunk. It's sucked. Personally, setting K-State sports aside, for all of us, this has been difficult. But to have your outlet, you're like, hey, I get to at least still watch K-State sports. They saved college sports. Now I can still watch them. Oh, I get it. It stinks. But I don't think this is a permanent thing going on with K-State sports. I don't think they've sunk to this level on a permanent basis. I think we've just had an alignment of bad things and, really unfortunate timing with the pandemic with men's basketball. They had other opportunities and distractions in football that kind of made it a helter-skelter season. Women's basketball was incredibly disappointing. Baseball has fallen short of expectations. It's, bluntly put, been a giant kick in the crotch kind of year. It's not been fun, and I get it. I understand your frustrations, but that's one of the things I've always loved about K-Staters is maybe it's the ag background that even, you as a city boy coming to Manhattan and being around ag people, you just persist. Sometimes it rains too much. Sometimes it rains too little. Sometimes, the cows have lots of little babies, and other times they don't. You just don't know what's going to happen in your ag life. But you keep going back to work, and you keep showing up, and you keep doing things, and you enjoy the highs, and you make it through the lows. And I think the same thing will happen with K-State sports. and I really hope football is getting closer to some highs. I don't think it'll be improved this year, but I don't think it'll be this year. May not even be next year. But I think good things are coming for football. I have a sincerely great feeling about football. And basketball, I don't know. The trend would be now it's going to trend up for a while. That's the Weber trend. We'll see if that plays out. So it's not going to be this drought for years on end. Better times are coming, and the harvest will be better, and your smiles will return.
Another question from Limestone Silo kind of feeds into the discussion we're having now. I know this has been discussed before, but I need to be reminded after the baseball team followed the rest of the athletic teams this year by underperforming. Why, again, are we supposed to think Gene Taylor is running a good athletic program?
I mean, at some point, the boss is held accountable. I understand that, but not for every little downturn. I mean, you can't run any organization like that. That would be like saying, hey, our sales dropped this year. Well, there was a pandemic. I don't care. Sales dropped. You're fired. I'm going to bring in a new guy and we're going to start all over with the management. You got to be careful about that. We talk a lot about having overturning coaches, and Gene's been good about, making sure coaches have enough opportunity to win, maybe too good, you could argue, but that probably holds true for athletic directors. Now, one of the things I was concerned about with Gene was John Curry was the exact opposite of a coach's AD. He was adversarial with his coaches. Still can't explain it. Don't understand it. I think it was a, personal weakness growing up, that he was intimidated by people like Bill Snyder and Deb Patterson and Frank Martin, and he was going to push back now that he had the power. Gene's the other way. I mean, the saloon door swings both ways, and we swung back the other way to a coach's AD. And the problem with the coach's AD isn't that they give their coaches a lot of rope and, let them kind of feel through the process. They often become their friends. And believe me, as a boss, becoming friends with your employees makes everything a lot more difficult. So it's a real challenge of leadership at that point.
Yeah, and to your point, it looks, the optics of Gene Taylor hiring Chris Kleiman, he was his AD at North Dakota State, so it looks bad, and, it seems like there's some increased pressure for success there. But remember, he's only had 2 years. Chris Kleiman has had 2 years, one of which was interrupted by a pandemic and a whole host of other things. So, he's basically going into year 2 is how I feel it with Chris Kleiman. And then take basketball, for example. They were coming off of the worst season ever, and then they do it again and have another bad season, which, yeah, you can chalk up to the pandemic a little bit, but, it was going to be bad. It was going to be some growing pains. Right. And then it was probably even worse than what people expected. So I feel the frustrations, but, I feel like next year I'm optimistic for football, but I'm probably pessimistic on basketball. Just prove that you're not what you've been the last 2 years, because if they are what they've been the last 2 years, I'd trust Gene Taylor to make the move.
I think too, let's not make it sound like we're giving Gene Taylor a free pass and we're making excuses, because I don't want people listening to think that we're sitting up here making excuses because of the pandemic. The bottom line is every single school in the country had to deal with the same thing. So that's not what we're doing. I think that is pretty clear. I think for me, I look at Gene Taylor right now, and if you want to compare it to a professional organization, you guys can tell me if I'm wrong on this, but he's the owner of a professional team. He hires the general manager. The general manager and the owner both hire the coach. He really does not have any impact on the field, on the court. He just has an impact on who is leading the players on the field and on the court. You can make the perfect hire, and sometimes it doesn't work out. I don't know if he's made the perfect hires, but I do know that he is trying to put K-State in the best position possible to win. He's not shortcutting anything. The question was about the athletic program, and I think I've only been in Manhattan for almost 4 years now. The athletic facilities, the culture, I think is trending in the right direction, because at the end of Bill Snyder, I just didn't feel like, there was a change that needed to be made. I feel like there's excitement, and as frustrating as it is, I still feel like the arrow is pointing in the right direction. I know it might not seem like it, but I really think it is.
One of the things I really admire about Gene Taylor is he doesn't care about optics. He doesn't care that I hired my best friend, a good friend. I think he's the coach for Kansas State. He doesn't care that Bill Snyder is Bill Snyder, but I truly believe we need to make a change here. We're going in the wrong direction, and there's no sign staying this course is going to do anything but further deteriorate the football program. He takes a raise when probably it wasn't supposed to be done. He keeps Bruce Weber when a loud part of the fan base wanted him to make a change. So I admire that. I mean, if you truly believe in something and you believe in someone, you stand with them and by them. Now you start stacking all of those decisions and the optics of it one on top of another, and you start to understand why fans are getting a little bit uneasy about the losing. Because standing by your decision or your person can also mean you're too arrogant to admit a mistake, to admit that the decision you made this number of years ago isn't working out in the current time frame. I don't see that, knowing Gene, I don't see that at all from him. But I guess it's just something maybe he needs to be a little careful with. These optics do kind of like ding you as you go along. Now, if it all cashes in and K-State's winning 67% of its games in a couple of years, and someone's got a Big 12 championship, or they have another big year where they win multiple championships, then everyone's going to be happy and they're not going to care. They're going to have an AD who kicks ass and takes names and doesn't care what people think about it. So there's a lot of things going on here with frustration coming out of the pandemic with the fan base. I get it. I feel it. Our business sees it. Our business feels it. So we're pretty attuned with all that stuff going on. But again, I think K-Staters will stay the course.
The last question of the first half of the podcast comes from WCAT. K-State has the second lowest enrollment of the Big 12 schools and the smallest athletic department budget in the conference. Its major sports finished with disappointing seasons at near the bottom of the conference standings in their respective sports. Is the university floundering and does it need new leadership?
I think you meant public.
Public?
Do you mean public? Surely TCU and Baylor don't have 20,000 students.
Yeah, Baylor. I know TCU's around 12 and Baylor's 16.
I think public.
Well, who would be the smaller public? Iowa State's bigger. Kansas is bigger. West Virginia's huge.
Maybe
Texas Tech?
No, Texas Tech. All those Texas schools are going to be big. Let's look this up. Stand by.
Are we out of schools? Oklahoma State's bigger.
I think Oklahoma State's bigger. I mean, maybe there've been some leapfrogging. I'll look.
Well, get back to what was the end of the question again?
Is the university floundering and does it need new leadership?
I think the university's floundering. I do, and that's not a shot at General Myers in any way. He was asked to temporarily take a job to be a transition president, and now he's how many years has he been at this? 4?
He's been here as long as I've been here. So
I think since spring of 16, because I graduated about the time where Kirk Schultz left, or he was close to leaving.
I mean, the guy's pushing 80. He's a remarkable man in every way, but there's no way he's as invested in this as John Weefald was when he showed up from the Minnesota system to revive K-State.
Do you think he has a son he's trying to get the president job?
That could be. Corporal Myers. I guess his son would be 50-something. 60. Wow. Let's move on. Yeah, I do. And I think he would agree that it's time for him to move on. I think the bigger problem here is becoming the Board of Regents. They have made consistently bad decisions about, Wichita State. This university needs to get aggressive. But there's nothing the university can do without help from the Board of Regents. So that's my concern. And does the new governor appreciate the importance of running an academic system in a profitable business-like manner while being fair in the pricing for your in-state students?
Well, that's just the thing. I think I was just having this conversation with my friends. One of my friends makes a lot of money at 21 years old. He works at a BMW dealership. He didn't go to college. Mm-hmm. That's an issue here, too, that a lot of people don't want to talk about is there's other opportunities besides having to get a college degree now.
Well, let's be really honest here. The fallacy of a college degree has been exposed in many ways. In many ways, if you're a person not inclined to want to get a 4-year degree, learn how to be an electrician or, something. You get a trade. You can make more money and add in 3 years while I'm drinking in Aggieville and you're working. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a serious amount of money, particularly if you're putting it away and it starts compounding on you through the years, and you did that from age 19 on. I think a lot of people now are realizing I went to college. I just engulfed myself in debt that now I'm hoping gets miraculously wiped clean because it's the only solution I see because I have so much debt. Why did I do this? Because I don't have a degree that is of great value.
Right.
If you're going to amass the kind of debt your generation's having to do, mm-hmm. because education prices have skyrocketed, you better be an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, something that enables you to pay that off, because it's really difficult. It's really, really challenging to do that. I know everyone wants to keep state taxes down. I certainly do in my libertarian ways, but I also believe if you're going to pay taxes, you need to do them at the closest vicinity to you. My city, my state. That's where I want to pay a majority of my taxes, and I don't. Because back in the day, when I went to school, every in-state student was supplemented by the state. Every one of us. And now there's nothing. And we can barely get the state to keep the buildings from falling apart. So the state needs to make a decision. We've got umpteen state-sponsored schools. Is this wise? Is it wise to have that many schools? I think you make an argument it's not. But how do you unwind that? What happens to a Pittsburgh or a Emporia if you close the school? Destroys a town. That's not good for the state. So it's a complex problem that Kansas has got itself into. But back to the point, whomever comes in here needs to run this great balancing act of understanding the educational culture, which in some ways is not ideal, while bridging it over to running a school like a business without operating it like a business. The academic culture is a weird, weird place. There's a lot of people that make a lot of money who don't really understand that they need to be generating. At the end of the day, this is a business. You should have enough students to generate what your department's costing you. And this doesn't work that way.
I've talked about it, and we've talked about it on this podcast a lot in the past, but degrees are not as modern as they should be.
No.
Education doesn't move as quickly as technology does, and it can't. And in a place like K-State where, I know they're trying with their 2025 campaign, and they've been trying to become, a top 50 research university, but until you can become at the forefront of, something, we talk about they have good engineering. Everything's only good. Nothing is really the leader in the industry. And maybe that changes with NBAF coming in, maybe some other stuff changes, but until K-State gets to the top and decides to become an innovator, K-State's just going to be flat. And I did look it up. They are the lowest public school. Baylor and TCU are just under.
And it's going south. It's going back down. When I was in school, before John Weefald arrived, we were at 16,000 students and heading south. I mean, this institution was about to become a big version of Hayes or something. And he changed that. It's time to go find the next Doc Weefald. That's it for the first half of the Power Cat Questions podcast. We'll be right back. We're sponsored by the Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you get some of that Pabst Heavy Seltzer, whatever it is. Oh, Lord. Get drunk and belch. Good times.
GoPowerCat.com's Power Cat podcast continues after this short break.
Hey, I'm Ryan Reynolds. At Mint Mobile, we like to do the opposite of what Big Wireless does. They charge you a lot, we charge you a little. So naturally, when they announced they'd be raising their prices due to inflation, we decided to deflate our prices due to not hating you. That's right. We're cutting the price of Mint Unlimited from $30 a month to just $15 a month. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Selling a little or a lot? Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage, to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit 1 million orders stage. Shopify's here to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. From their all-in-one e-commerce platform to their in-person POS system, wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with the internet's best converting checkout. 15% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. And sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic, your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the US. And Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning 24/7 help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/Odyssey Podcast.
Welcome back to the Power Cat podcast. Now, let's return to the GPC studios.
Welcome back to the Power Cat Questions podcast. A long first half. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking here. Go to the Fridge, go to Tanner's, go to the Hilo, go to everything that you want to do in Manhattan. Just come to Manhattan. Feel sorry for us and come to town. Stop at the Fridge.
Feel sorry for us?
Yeah, feel sorry
Why?
for us.
Because of our construction?
Yeah.
That they'll have to experience when they come to town?
Jeez.
Yeah.
Good luck getting into Aggieville. I go down towards Aggieville the other day, Zach, and I'm going to pull the right turn on, 14th Street? 15th Street?
Burger King.
Yeah, the
And 14th.
And it's closed.
Oh, it's been closed for a while.
You can go to Burger King. That's it.
I know.
Yeah.
So then you're trapped. So your choices are to get back on to Anderson and get into the traffic, or try to go right through Aggieville. But that's a nightmare because when you get to Rally House, you have to turn left right now. And everyone's trying to park going 2 miles an hour. It's a mess.
Or you could just take a tour of MCC.
What a mess.
I don't think you can turn right into it. You're stuck.
Oh,
Yeah. You can't get anywhere in this town. Anyhow, come to Manhattan. You might want to parachute into town and just drop right into your location, but make sure you stop at the Fridge.
Where are we dropping, boys?
Here you go. More of your questions from Wabash Station. Take it away, Midnight.
First question of the second half comes from El Camino Cat. Should TJ Shankar be the 2020-2021 KSU Athlete of the Year?
I don't know how he's not.
Probably should be. I don't. How well has he done? I haven't even
He's won
followed
the Big
that.
12.
He did win the Big 12.
He's defending
Okay.
national champ too. So, yeah, that's still coming.
He should
up.
qualify for India for the Olympics. Maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. Honestly,
Hopefully.
Olympic. Yeah.
Yes. Yes is all around.
Oh yeah, India. Yeah, he'll absolutely qualify for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
That's the advantage of having a lot of international track people. You know, they can make the
India's
Olympics.
a big country, though.
It's
Yeah,
the
but-
biggest country in the world.
Second, right?
I think
It's
it's
the most
second.
populated.
Is it more than China?
I'm 95%.
Okay.
I'll
Alexa, what's the population of China?
China's population is 1.44 billion people.
Alexa, what's the population of India?
India's population is 1.38 billion.
Yep,
Alexa.
I'm glad I took that 5%.
Alexa, what's the population of Luxembourg?
Luxembourg's population is 626,000 people.
Oh, that's more than I thought it'd be, actually.
What's Iceland?
Alexa, what's the population of Iceland?
Iceland's population is 341,000 people.
There you go.
And they're all blonde and beautiful. Anyhow, yeah, he should be able to make it. I mean, we should have a number of international former athletes that are out there in the Olympics, if Japan has it.
If. We'll find out.
I'm sure they will.
They got to.
They're him-hawing around on it still. I just move it to Florida. You got enough facilities down there. Just move it to Florida, for God's sakes. Might have hotel space. You could just rent a bunch of cruise ships, park them, and put the nations on different cruise ships.
You mean how Tulsa was supposed to do it for their Olympic bid? Did you ever read about that? Yeah, there's a canal that goes up through to Tulsa, and the plan for their Olympic bid, I think it was for 2022 or 2026, whatever it was, 24, 26, who knows. They wanted to bring in cruise ships, park them on the canal, and that would have gotten them to their quote-unquote hotel capacity limit.
How big is this canal?
Apparently big enough for this to be somewhat not far-fetched.
I mean, need to go to Tulsa and check out this canal.
Going to Tulsa and having the Olympics there is far-fetched, but it was intriguing following that bid, or them trying. They were never even like invited to make a bid by the U.S. Olympic Committee.
Let's make a bid for Manhattan and just have everybody on the Kansas River.
I like it. That'll play out well. That's like building Bramwich Coliseum to get the NCAA tournament. Worked out like a charm.
Second question of the second half is from Duck Hook 8. What is the current status of COVID protocols for K-State athletics? Still regular testing, players getting vaccinated?
That's a great question.
I assume that baseball players are still getting tested.
Yeah, so Pete Hughes has said that they are actually 90% vaccinated on the team and the staff and everything. So I would assume they're still getting tested, but I'm pretty sure they don't have to wear masks anymore. I think they're kind of following the majors protocols where if you have 85% of your staff vaccinated, then you can loosen up the restrictions. But, I think it's really good that the baseball program has got 90% of their team vaccinated.
Yeah,
sure.
I chatted briefly with Chris Kleiman about it, and they're trying to get more players. They're not going to require anyone. This is a personal health choice, and I'm really opposed to these campuses that are making students get vaccinated. Screw you, man. It's just too far for me. But you also want to keep everyone safe. Here's the thing. If I'm vaccinated, and when we first had the vaccinations come out, there was concern that we could still be carriers. And we can still catch COVID. I still see this, that so-and-so got vaccinated and still got COVID. That's true of almost any vaccine. I mean, you could still get it. And this being the kind of, quote, vaccine it is, it's going to be very true. I could still get COVID. It won't be as severe. That's the point. It won't be as severe. And what they're not seeing, though, is transmission. And that's enormous. Mm-hmm. The fear was I needed to still wear a mask because you can still transmit it. They're not seeing any transmission from vaccinated people to unvaccinated people. So if you are vaccinated, what do I care if Cole's sitting across from me not vaccinated? I'm protected from Cole if he wants to make that decision. And that's the way I am now with everything. Going to football games. Now it's in your hands. If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's fine. I did. I feel protected. Maybe I'll still get COVID. I'm really confident I'm not dying from it, which I thought was the goal here. I didn't know eradication was the goal. I thought preventing us from clogging up the hospitals and dying was the goal. So I'm getting a little confused what we're doing here. I'm going to feel safe going in public. If you feel safe not being vaccinated going in public, that's fine. We both made our own choices. Everyone can get the vaccine who wants it. Now, I hope athletes do get it simply because it'll make sure that it doesn't spread amongst the unvaccinated. And plus, if you're vaccinated, you're not going to be getting a cotton swab shoved up your nose 3 times a week.
What I'm worried about, and for the record, I mean, I'm as somebody who is fully vaccinated and is everyone in their family, their close friends, fully vaccinated. So maybe my views on it are a little bit differently, but I would think that these players would want to, because I would imagine there's still going to be COVID protocols for if you're in contact with somebody. I mean, if you're not vaccinated and somebody gets COVID on the team and you were in close contact with them, you're going to have to sit out. But if you are vaccinated, you're not going to have to sit out. So I think that would offer incentive, because I really do think there is still going to be some type of, protocol, if rather it be testing, maybe weekly, just
certainly for the unvaccinated,
right? You would think so. I don't think it's going to go away. The COVID protocols aren't going to go away just because it is still, an issue. But at the same time, I think that would just incentivize athletes.
I don't know. Because of my situation, I've spent a lot of time studying this, and I've tried to rise above all the nonsense out there, people playing games with this. I'm vaccinated. I feel safe. Maybe I'm being foolish, but I know the chances of me getting a serious transmission of this virus have gone way down, and that's all I need. That's all I need. So Chris Kleiman did mention to me that the quarantine thing is a big incentive. Mm-hmm. If you're vaccinated, you won't have to be quarantined. Oh, I'm going to go get vaccinated. Yeah, I wouldn't want to be locked up in my house for 2 weeks, missing practice and games.
And if you're vaccinated, maybe you won't lose your taste for 5 months.
That's true. And maybe if you're vaccinated, you'll get a side effect where it cuts like half a second off of your 40 time.
Is that what they're telling recruits?
That's science. Yeah, it's science.
Okay, yeah.
That's a lot. If you run a 5 second, that's a 10% decrease down to 4.5. That's incredible.
They're seeing it. Yeah, they're seeing it over in Trans-Asia. I think I just made that up.
What?
I don't know. Just the lower upper India. There's the tests are coming out. Yeah, they've got like a half second. This is all. And plus, you would lift more. It's science. I'm sorry, I got too scientific.
Moving on now from KNet asks, with the Nike All Sports deal expiring, will it be sports-specific deals? What is the financial impact of outfitting minor sports? Will we become the second New Balance school? Should we go back to being an LA Gear school? What is LA Gear? I'm asking.
Oh my God.
I don't remember those days. I think I was able to go back in time long enough, like
New
early
Balance?
enough in Boston College is switching to New Balance for every sport except football, I believe. So they're going to switch there. No, I don't think K-State will ever switch to New Balance, because New Balance is it's New Balance taking over Boston College is just being like, hey, we're next door. We're little buddies. We're in Boston. We make our stuff here in Boston. You want to be friends? And Boston College was like, yeah, we'll be friends. So I don't think.
So K-State's going to be champion?
I would love that personally.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the way that these 90s brands have kind of restarted, like Starter, Champion, they're cool now for Gen Z.
They are.
Like 10 years ago, I wouldn't be caught dead wearing Champion. Now, Champion's cool again.
It's expensive.
It's a luxury-ish brand now, the way it's been represented to the market. So I could see, one of those types of companies re-entering college sports. That's not necessarily for K-State. And talking about K-State, no, I don't think that K-State's ever going to get away from a manufacturer producing everything. It'll be Nike, Adidas, Under Armour. I know that there'll be a next question here. We'll keep talking about this, so I won't give my thoughts yet, but it'll be one deal, and I think that K-State will re-up with Nike, if you want to ask the next question.
Yeah, so Cliff Calvin 754 asks Oz that
Clavin. Put some respect on his name.
Man, we're having some serious cultural age issues right now on this podcast. He's not heard of LA Gear, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah. LA Gear.
Yeah, I barely remember LA Gear. And now he doesn't know who Cliff Clavin is. Do you know what the sitcom Cheers is?
Yeah, I know what that is.
That's Cliff Clavin.
Oh, okay. I just
He's the
figured.
postal worker.
Yeah, I just, sometimes I struggle reading, so.
That's good.
Cliff Clavin, 754. Odds that KSU.
He's going to be a senior at K-State. Okay.
Odds that KSU re-ups with Nike, 25%, 50%, 75%, 100%.
I'd put it at like 98, 99%. just the way the pandemic happened. The contract was running out. They went into their last year, and I've been kind of keeping an eye on this and making requests, for whatever the new contract is. The last one I made in February, there was no movement. So it'll end June 30th, at least the way the current contract is. And the way that the contract is written, K-State and their exclusive negotiating time frame to create a new deal with Nike ended last July 1. So they've been allowed to speak with Adidas, Under Armour, whoever else since then legally. And I don't know if they necessarily have, and that's not the indication that I've gotten from my correspondence with K-State. And because, it seems like it's a Nike thing, their supply chain over in Asia, they got, with COVID, everything kind of took a back seat. And another thing was that Nike did take over the MLB contract at the beginning of last year. So that probably played a bit of an effect going into the 2020, at least baseball and, some other seasons there from a design aspect, just because I think when Nike took over, the basketball contract for NBA, NFL, 10 years ago or so, I think that there was kind of some delays as far as college product went and some designs there. But, with the way the contract was, K-State did get new, quote unquote, new jerseys last year as far as a template goes. And usually they try to use those for a couple of years. So I think that the way the contract was ending and how they could have redesigned, but they really didn't redesign jerseys for last year. I think that it could be at least, another year, before we see anything there. But I'd say 98% chance of them re-upping. And it's just, Nike hasn't been able to, it hasn't been a priority, I guess, for them right now at this point. But I still think that the relationship is somewhat good.
Pandemic's impacted Nike.
Yeah.
Manufacturing, creation, all that. Explain real quick to everyone what a school such as Kansas State gets out of a contract with Nike.
So for K-State and really a lot of schools, even, some big schools, but it's rarely ever cash. It's all product. So K-State gets $1.6 or something million of retail product a year, I believe, from Nike. And it goes up each year. And when K-State switched from equestrian to soccer as their 16th women's sport, Nike did up the contract a little bit of money just because, there was obviously new product and more stuff that they needed to supply
in a viable market too.
Yeah. So for that, looking around the conference, Iowa State probably has the weirdest deal with Nike, and it's just kind of, I don't know, it goes into more specifics into sports, and it seems like they get less, but Oklahoma State gets a lot more product allowance, but they also have more sports too. So it kind of just depends on what the sports are. We'll never know what Baylor and TCU are. I haven't looked at Texas Tech or KU's contracts recently for Adidas and Texas Tech, or for Under Armour and Adidas. But, they're probably somewhat similar as far as the cash and product goes. I think KU might get a little bit more cash, and it might not be on the books, but
no way.
What? The cash from Adidas? What? I mean, who's getting that money?
Yeah. And when Riley and we made these, I think it's been 3 years now, Texas absolutely refused, and they cited some Texas Supreme Court case with Boeing, I think, that said, hey, we don't have to give out contracts. I'm just like, okay, whatever. But Texas was not thrilled with releasing what Nike pays them and what they give them. So we weren't able to make a good comparison.
Is it fair to say that the odds of K-State getting with Adidas is 0?
I would say it's probably 0 just because of...
Could you imagine K-State
just because of the KU stuff.
Yeah,
I think
why would Adidas do that?
Yeah, why would Adidas do... I mean, one, they're already in the market, so to speak, Kansas. If it's for advertising, it doesn't make a lot of sense there. And then Under Armour, they're trying to get out of most of their deals, at least their big ones. And maybe they try to... re-enter new markets, but, they dumped Cal, they dumped UCLA. They aren't paying these giant contracts, and not that K-State would have ever gotten a huge contract, and maybe that's what Under Armour is going after, trying to do these Nike-style contracts, saying, hey, we'll give you, maybe they say, we'll give you $3 million of product, but it's not going to be cash. Maybe it's one of those types of things.
And it's entirely possible to do a shoe deal and an equipment deal. I mean, you can do different things here. I think K-State would naturally prefer just to stick with Nike. I think we all would prefer that. But you also have to do what's best for your department. And if an outside player like a Champion steps up and says, we'll give you 1.5 and just stuff, not shoes, you can go get your own shoe deal. Yeah, I think you probably have to stop and look at it.
Maybe not at that. It'd probably need to be a lot more money than that if you're going to do separate. But yeah, I mean, the point's there. But if one of these let's say Puma or somebody else that kind of had these 90s, at least NFL football deals wants to step back in, the college game is the easiest market to get back into for a new player, so to speak.
I saw Puma golf stuff. The shirts were sweet.
Puma makes good stuff. Soccer jerseys. There's a lot of stuff out there that Puma's like, that might be a little bit better than Adidas.
You know what my new motto is going to be? I'm going to be like an old shoe company. I'm not old. I'm retro.
There you go. I love it. TN Cat asked, tagging on to K-Ned's question, with the Nike contract running out, does that mean that we are even further delayed in seeing possible alternate uniforms for football, since they always say it takes a couple of years to play in those? And I'm going to add on to this question, and what kind of jerseys would we like to see for alternate uniforms?
I got my all whites. I'm pretty damn happy.
I don't want black. K-State's not the Colorado Rockies. I know that you guys think that K-State can be the Colorado Rockies, but I don't think that black and purple looks good together. Sorry. I don't think that
I disagree with that, but TCU does a lot of black and purple. Let's let them have that.
Okay, at the very least, TCU has already got that. They are already the Rockies. Why try being TCU?
Right. I mean, if you did, I don't want any black on the uniforms. If you did any black, maybe I'd accept a black helmet, but that's it. A black helmet with a white Power Cat, that's it. That's all I'd want. I don't want any pants or anything. I just want other combinations.
Give me the all grays.
I would love to have a retro helmet that wasn't even necessarily a helmet at one time. I mean, I love the Fightin' Willie quite a bit. I think that's a badass version of an old Willie. Would never on a football helmet. Still, I mean, I think that'd be a really popular trademark that people would like to buy. It came up on the Life of Fitz podcast with Mark Porter in 1982 when they went to their first bowl game, and I was in the stands for this. It was my freshman year. They warmed up for the KU game. It was a night game on TBS at the stadium, and when they went back into the locker room and came out, they were in silver tops, and the place just went crazy. The team was fired up, and I agree. I'm going to do a daily delivery on it, but I would love to see a silver retro top next season for the 40th anniversary of the first bowl.
So do you think that would be cool? A possibility?
I'm going to try to make it a possibility.
That's kind of what this question is asking.
For 2022, yeah. I mean, that's the earliest, but if K-State gets new uniforms this year, I would say that they wouldn't have a Nike logo on them if K-State gets new uniforms. I think anything
new this year will be in the space of a helmet because you can get blanks and put stickers on.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's what we're looking at. I wouldn't be surprised to see a purple helmet with the white Power Cat this year, which I think would be badass as long as the helmet matched the uniform.
What about the old deep purple with the K on the side that they had when they were really bad? I know people always get frustrated about the cats.
Well, the K, the one I like, the old one, is from the 1960s when they were really bad. The K with the state under it.
Your favorite one blows up the argument of, you can't wear the cat script because K-State was so bad. It's like, well, if the one you like and you want to wear, they might have done better, but it was just a tie. They didn't win, but they tied.
It does, but it doesn't because it was so far ago. People don't tie it together. A lot of us still tie that Cats logo to some pretty miserable times. It's a cool logo, but it's interesting they brought that back because we never thought of it as cool. Well, it was on a just tragically bad football team's helmet. We never looked at it like, oh, that's really cool.
It goes back to what I was saying about the 90s and even the 80s.
It back?
Exactly.
Stuff.
It's cool.
The Gen Z and the younger generations, they like retro stuff. And as hard as it is for a lot of people to admit, 80s and 90s has been a while since those. 10 years ago, You go back to 70s and 80s, and we're looking at the same time frame as far as what retro was. So we're moving up. It's going to be close to where year 2000 stuff is retro.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes me feel old. Last question.
Wait, hang on.
Oh, my God.
One more thing.
How am I so old?
As far as uniforms go, I would rather K-State create some sort of new brand identity, because in the contract, Nike says, hey, we'll create stuff for you. Nike won't own it. You'll own it, if you ever decide to change. But, Nike's done a great job in the past. They redesigned Arizona State stuff before they moved to Adidas. Tennessee, I'm sure there's others that I'm missing. Oklahoma State is actually probably the best one, especially recently, because they had kind of that redesign about 10 years ago, but then about 4 or 5 years ago, they did another one, and they created, a new font, a pattern that they use kind of on their collar, and, a new motif, I guess. And I think that K-State is long overdue for, a font and just kind of an overall brand identity look. And you can create a second logo. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that K-State could do and Nike could do for K-State that I feel like they just haven't taken advantage of. And the fact that K-State has had to go back to the Cats logo, as controversial as it seems, is just kind of telling of
what do we have laying around,
of how little stuff K-State has. And I think that using Serpentine is just a gross font. It's not unique to K-State. It's everywhere. Every little construction company on the face of the earth uses that font for whatever. So I think that K-State needs something bespoke to them, and Nike is there to provide it for them, and they just need to take advantage of it.
We use Serpentine in a lot of graphics and headlines for the magazine, and about a year in, I got tired of it. I don't like the font.
It's not a good font.
It's a weird choice. Milk was a bad choice, and so was Serpentine.
K-Ned, for the last question of the podcast.
Sorry, this is an Anchorman reference.
Is 3 consecutive National Basketball Hall of Fame coaches the easiest way to describe how good K-State basketball was in the Triangle days? Congratulations to Cotton.
Yeah, Cotton Fitzsimmons going into the Hoops Hall of Fame. Incredible. Just incredible. And, Bruce Weber adds to it. Nobody's going to look back through the length of time. You breaking your microphone over there?
I don't know what's going on.
You went limp. You're unscrewed at the side there, I think. Yeah, just amazing. Gardner to Winter to Fitzsimmons to Hartman. Just incredible. And Jack, unfortunately, won't probably get into anything.
I feel like the Basketball Hall of Fame just kind of let in a lot of people.
Well, Cotton's going in more for the NBA.
Sure.
But, yeah, they're not letting Jack Hartman in. You can make an argument his winning percentage and conference title should get him in, but he never really advanced too deep in the NCAA tournament. It's really cool. We have a really cool tradition of basketball coaches, and you stop and think about it. Kruger, Altman, and then eventually Huggs and Martin and Weber. That all adds to it, and it's something to consider for the future when you go out and hire a coach. It's a pretty tradition-laden place to coach basketball. But, yeah, congratulations, Scott Fitzsimmons. You were here a very short period of time. I think he lived in a house right across the street from where we are. I think will you stop your phone? Why do I have to hear your phone? Why does a young guy have a vibrating phone on the podcast? Why, Cole? Answer these.
I tweeted about Ted Lasso last night, and somebody just liked the tweet.
Okay.
Put it on a soft surface. Also, why do you have your notifications on for Twitter? Come on.
Because I'm not Twitter famous like you guys.
Oh, I see. Well, I'm Twitter famous. We're going to go now. I got some tweets to make, apparently. Thanks for listening to the PowerCat Podcast. We'll be back next week with more of your questions from Wabash Station. And, of course, back on Friday with the overtime, which I think we're going to record right now.
Thank you for listening to the PowerCat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. PowerCat Podcast. All rights reserved. GoPowerCat.com.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.